Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to show you how to install an exterior door. Alright, so before we start actually getting into the demo, I need you to check the size and swing of your new door. So you don't want to remove everything and then get to that door and see that it's damaged or it doesn't fit or the swing's wrong. So please double check that before you start destroying everything. So if your exterior door has a storm door already on the outside, that's usually the thing that I start out off with. So I want to eliminate that from the actual jamb, and then all you have to worry about is the jamb and the actual door. So for this door, this one's really old, it's original to the house. I am going to repurpose it somewhere else, so I'm actually going to be a little careful with this. Usually if you're just swapping out a door, you're not going to have to do some of the stuff that I'm doing, but I'm doing that just to be a little more careful with this. First thing you want to do, just like I said, tackle the storm door first. If yours has one, get that off. Second thing, take your knife and I want you to run it where the casing meets the drywall, right over here on this side. Last thing you want to do is pop the casing off, and then some of the drywall paint comes with it. So I'm actually going to be installing a double gang box here, and this switch runs my dining room light right here. I'm going to add another switch for a floodlight that I'm going to wire. I'm not going to focus too much on the details of that because this is pretty much strictly about the door. I'm just intertwining this project with this one just because it's a lot easier. So if you see me taking off drywall here, don't worry about that. That doesn't pertain to the door installation. It's really just the floodlight switch. So yeah, first thing, I want you to score your knife down here and do that all the way around both sides of the casing and then on top of the header as well. And then we can actually start taking off the casing. Now, your casing most likely is going to look different than mine. This is a really old frame. So there's going to be, I'm going to tackle it a little bit differently. Most likely your casing is just right on the drywall and it's nailed into the door jamb. So you pop the casing off and then the jamb is actually exposed. Mine's going to be a little different. It's an older style, but I'm probably going to tackle in here first. So this trim is actually made with layers. They do one-by material. They do a decorative panel molding on the side here, and then they also do another strip with a round over right here. So there's actually 3 pieces to this. So you're going to start and take the pry bar and pry this out. I'm just going to be kind of all over, so our doors may not look the same, but same concept. Take the casing off, and then after the storm door is off and all the casing is off, then we can actually tackle the jamb. So we have our demo done, and I finished up my other little projects that I had to do prior to the door installation that didn't really pertain to the actual installation itself. I just pretty much ran wires down to the basement. I'm going to do a light outside on a switch here. So I took out the single gang. I'm going to do a double gang. The one switch goes to the dining room light, and the other switch goes to the floodlight, but that didn't pertain to the door installation, so I didn't film it. I also got the flashing in. So I didn't film that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Pretty much it's a 6-inch flashing that has a sticky backing to it, and all you do is lay it down right on your threshold and it runs up the sides. I will zoom in on that in a little bit once I get the silicone down and once we actually start to do the installation. So, but that is all set. I had to pack out some of the frame, right into here to pretty much shrink the rough opening because the old door was an unusual size. Normally, you wouldn't have to do that, but it was a really old door, and I got a smaller door than what was here because of the double gang box, and I didn't want the trim to run into it. So, pretty much, I packed this guy out, and so he's all good to go. And now the next steps, we're going to bring the door over, and we're going to take the door off of the actual frame, and then we need to dry fit the frame. So I like to dry fit the frame before we do silicone down, because if something goes wrong and we have to take it back out and do some adjustments, then you don't have the silicone all on the bottom. So better to dry fit first, so the 2-foot level on. Once everything looks good and looks like we can get everything plumb and then the header level, then we should be good to go. So that's what we're going to do right now. So it's looking like this side is high right here. The bubble's over here. So whatever side, when you have the level on horizontally, the bubble will either be over here or over here, and the bubble will point to the high side. So this is the high side right here. So what we have to do, after we silicone everything, this side has to get shimmed up a little bit in order to make this level. Everything else looks pretty good. I have the appropriate gap in here and on this side. I usually leave 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch on each side so I can actually get the shims in. And then I'll also have some room for the insulation at the very end once I do that. So other than that, we should be pretty good to go. So let's throw some silicone down on the flashing. All right, so we're ready for our silicone here. Make sure everything's clean. Get any dust or anything off. You can do a little vacuum or just wipe it. Wipes off pretty easily. Now, I like to do at least 2 beads on here. You can do as many as you want. Don't be shy with this stuff. So the more the better. Obviously, don't go obnoxious, but even when I said that this was the high side here, try to throw a little bit more over in this section, because we're going to have to kick this up just a little bit. We're not going too crazy, but whatever part you do have to shim up, I like to go a little bit more, and that way it's still making contact underneath the threshold. So I like to start right on the top here, and then I normally have these tips cut smaller if I'm caulking a bathroom or something, but in this case you can cut it relatively large, just to make sure you get enough out of it. I'm going to go pretty thick here. Go all the way over, and then run it right up that side. And do the same thing again. Just like I said, just throw a lot in there. It'll definitely help you out. And a lot of times if I have just like a little bit left over, just dump the rest of the tube in. Alright, so we're ready to install the actual door frame itself. Things that you want near you. Your 78-inch level. You can use a 4-foot. This is much easier. It's meant for doors. It hits all the hinges, but I have done it with a 4-foot level before. It is a little bit of a pain. If you have this level and if you want to get it for your project, it does make life a lot easier. Grab your 24-inch level as well for the header. You want a bucket of shims and then your finished nail gun to actually install the door. I'm using a 16 gauge finished nail gun with 2.5-inch nails. So when you're installing, especially exterior doors, it's better just to go with a thicker nail. 16 gauge is fine. 15's good as well. Even with interior doors, I just like using those thick nails. It's definitely just better, much better hold. What we're going to do after we're done with the whole installation I'm going to show you that how to do this, but we're going to install deck mates behind the weather stripping, and that just, you know, kind of solidifies it that much more. So I think we're ready to go. All right, when you plop this down on the silicone, just make sure you do it nice and easy. You don't want to smush everything. So get it right on there. Perfect. Now, I said before that this is the high side. This is the side that actually has to go up. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to throw a couple temporary tacks into here just to, you know, we can always adjust it later. It's really just to hold it in place while we're actually working with it. So I'm just going to throw some shims here. One down here. All right, so we got that. And I want this frame to be flush with the wall right here, like that. So my first tack is going to go right here. Same thing on the bottom. I'm going to shift that over. Perfect. Right there. All right, so this is a good example. The framing on this is a little kicked this way. Normally, you take the fat end of the shim. Here's the skinny end, fat end. You go here and you slide them together. If the framing is a little kicked, you can also take fat end, just like that, and shove it right through. It really does depend on your framing. We're really just going to keep this here. And again, these are temporary, so I did not plumb this yet. So it's really just holding it while I work on the other side. All right, all I did was stick a pry bar under. I just kicked the frame up a little bit. For my door, it was just a little bit, just a hair off. Perfect. So that did the trick right there. Next thing, I want to have this frame line up with the drywall here. So when we actually do our casing, everything is flush. All right, next thing, before we actually start plumbing everything and getting everything good, before you even throw that level on, I want you to check these screws. Sometimes, usually they're fine, but I have had them before where they're sticking out a little bit and you don't notice, and you throw the level on and you're leveling off, or making the door, trying to make it plumb, but the screw is right in the way and it's giving you false results. So just make sure you check that. All these look good. So next thing, I have my top in. Another thing I want to focus on is, before we start plumbing it this way, I want to check what the walls are. So normally you line it up with the actual sheetrock, but your walls could be off. I have an older house, so everything is off. So what I want to do before I start nailing everything, I'm actually going to throw the level on and check the plumb of this. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly plumb. The most important part, because walls, sometimes they're off, especially in older homes. But what you want to do, you can't have this jam this way and on this jam the other way, because when you shut the door, the bottom is going to hit before the top, and if it's that, crooked and cocked, then you're going to have an issue. So you want both sides of the frame to be, it'd be nice if you can actually, if they were plumb, but if they're a little bit this way or a little bit this way, it is okay as long as they're the same, because then your door is going to operate you know, a lot better and get a tight seal against the weather stripping. This guy. All right, so it does look like mine are pretty even. Again, they're not plumb, but they're both the same amount of you know, distance off. It shows that the bottom is kicked in a little bit. That is okay, as long as they match. That's very big, because when you go to hang the door, you'll notice immediately that either the top or the bottom is hitting, you know, before, you know, the other one, and it just turns into a big mess, and you have to kind of shimmy everything over, and it's just better just to kind of do that while you only have a couple nails in. So what I just did here, the frame itself has a little bow in it right in the middle, and sometimes that happens. So what I did, I shot a nail through the middle of the frame without any shims in there. Really what I'm trying to do right now is push the middle in, because the level needs to make contact with this point and this point. You want to make that plumb, and then what you could do when you start shimming out in the middle, you can always pull that out, because that nail is not permanent. He's just hanging out. I could stick a pry bar and kick him back over where he should be, so it just makes life a lot, you know, a little easier instead of that level bouncing back and forth over a hump in the middle. All right, so I have everything plumb right here. I have the top nailed in, and I'm about to nail in the bottom. Then what we're going to do is work our way up with the shims. So first start with the top and bottom, and once you have that, then you can fill in the middle. When you start nailing the frame in, whatever your backing is, try to spread the locations where you actually nail it in as far as apart as possible. You don't want to do one nail here. If you have backing over here, shoot it here. And if your backing ends here, shoot it over here. And if it goes to the ends, that's awesome. You can shoot right in. Sometimes you don't have that luxury, so just keep that in mind. When we start throwing more shims in, what I like to do a set of shims below and above each hinge. So you want 2, 4, 6 total. You can add as many as you want, but those are kind of pretty much the base that you want to tackle. One above, one below. Before we go nuts with the nails, I want to check the header one more time. Let me see here. Sorry, the sun's in my eyes. Perfect. All right, awesome. Constantly keep checking that level. The more nails you do, it may sound obsessive, but it may be, but just keep going with it, because the last thing you want is to nail the hell out of everything and you put your level on it and it's not plumb or it's not level. Very frustrating. So just keep checking. And also too, I want you to be aware when you start throwing shims on, sometimes depending on where you're actually shimming, if you're looking at this spot right here and you're throwing shims in and it looks good here, but without, you know, your eyes being in this section, sometimes the shims here can push the level from making contact here. So just make sure whenever you're done with the shims, right before you nail it, make sure the level is making, you know, contact with pretty much everywhere in the actual door jamb. All right, so I just checked everything. This is plumb, this is level, so these are perfect. The hinge side is the most important. I usually like to start with the hinge side when I start to shim. For right now, I'm going to leave all the shims in. I'll cut them off later. If I do have to make any adjustments after I install the door, it's a little easier to pull them out than, I mean, you can do it the other way after they're cut, which is a little more difficult, but yeah, leave these in for now, and then now we're going to start to work on the other side. All right, so I mentioned before, I just tacked the top and the bottom just, temporarily just to kind of keep it in place. Just like I said, header's good and the hinge side is good. What I like to do here is, and I've seen it done both ways, but I prefer it, being done this way. What we're going to do, fasten the top, because the header is going to stipulate the size here. There's not really much that can go wrong. Same thing with the bottom. I'm just going to pull those out and, check the sizes and make sure everything's good. So pretty much I want to nail the top. I want to nail the bottom. What I do with the middle, just like you saw me do over here, I'm going to take it and push it in and nail it a little farther than it actually needs to be. So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the door, hang the door, and then I'm just going to go right off of the reveal of the door and shim this out while the door is actually on. So it just makes life a little easier. You can shim this whole side and then hang the door. It really doesn't matter. This is the way I like to do it because you just have a little more control. And then, it's just a little easier to work with. So that's the next step. All right, next thing I want you to do, I want you to get familiar with these sizes. So the size up here, we have 31 and 15/16. Should be the same, but always good to double check. 31 15/16 is our number. The middle cannot be less than that. It could be more right now because we just threw that nail in. As long as we're good, we have 32 1/8, so that's perfect. So 3/16 bigger in the middle. So now we are ready to hang our door. All right, before you start lining up the hinges together, make sure you know where your pins are. You don't want to get it up there and then realize they're on the table. So make sure you have all three. And you can start in whatever direction you want. Sometimes I switch it up. Sometimes I'll hook the top. Sometimes I'll hook the bottom. It's really up to you. Make sure you have a little pry bar. You may not need it. Sometimes it's just a little easier to bump the door up. And then especially once you are done, once you slide the hinge pin in, it's nice just to kind of like tap it in with this. So other than that, I think you should be good to go. So you can start putting the door on. All right, so everything looks pretty good. There's a couple things I want to address. So the top is pretty tight over here. That's just part of the factory. It's one thing if it was tight here, but sometimes you do have to deal with things like that where it is pretty tight and you can't really do anything about that before you install the door because you're not really sure what's going on. But I mentioned deck mates before. That's how we're going to solve this problem because it is pretty intense for just a finish nail to actually kick this over. It's a little difficult. A deck mate, though, on the other hand, can shift that over. So pretty much, if I install a deck mate over here, I want to do a deck mate here first, because if I just send a deck mate through here, it could pull this whole thing out of whack, and we don't want to touch this because this is perfect. So that is what we want to do next. So why don't we start with the top? So just like I said before, let's do this deck mate first. We're going to put it right behind the weather stripping here. And then once that's in, then we can actually tackle this side and see if we can kick this over. I do have a little play with these shims, and I only just need a little bit because it does shut. This is the winter time now, so if it's tight now in the winter, when summer comes, the door is going to swell and it's definitely going to rub, and it just turns into a pain in the ass. So make sure you create enough spacing now to make sure in the summertime when the relative humidity kicks up a little bit that your door is not going to start rubbing. All right, what we want to do, take your drill bit and just peel back the weather stripping here because you want the deck mate to be hidden. Even though on this I can fill it with wood filler and all that, but if you can hide it, that's even better. So I see the shims right here, so I'm just going to go right behind the weather stripping, right into the shims. All right, perfect. So we have that one set. Let's do the other side. So like I said, we have a little leeway here, so don't worry about this. It can shift over. All right, good. So we're good with our spacing up here. Threw that other deck mate in. And next thing I want to address is the bottom. So same thing on the bottom. We're going to throw a deck mate in on that side so everything's stable, and then we're going to tackle this side right here. All right, so we're good to go. I would like to throw a couple more on the hinge side, just to kind of pull in some areas where it's a little bit tighter than the rest. So sometimes jams could have a little curve to them. So I don't know if that's going to pertain to your door, but it does to mine. So I'm going to finish that up really quick before I start nailing off the strike side. All right, so it looks good everywhere. So we're good at the top, the bottom. I have deck mates all up on this side wherever I needed them. Everything is nailed with the shims here. The next step to do is, now that we have our top and bottom, I'm going to copy that reveal right into here. So I'm just going to give it a little bit more. I like doing one below the lock set and one above, and then probably one more here, one more right here. So just to, give it a little bit more, stability in these sections right here. So why don't we tackle this guy here first? Now, same thing, my framing's kicked in a little bit, so I'm going to do the two fat ends. I'm going to go right above. And then what you're going to do while the door is closed, you're just going to tap it until the reveals are the same. If anything, a little bit bigger, just so it has a little bit more room. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Going down here, so I'm actually going to nail right here. All right, same thing, right below the lock set. All right, I'm happy with that. Going all the way down, that looks good. This one's not as necessary. I'm going to do it anyway. With exterior doors, I like to go a little overboard. Looks good right there. Because it doesn't take long, so you might as well make it stable and strong. We are good to go. Everything looks good. What I'm going to do now, I already have a deck mate in the top and the bottom. I do want to throw one right between the lock sets just to make it a little more stable in that section. All right, everything looks really good. Right here, yeah, everything's good here. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to cut all the shims. So we're going to cut everything on the inside and outside, and then I'll show you what the next steps are after that. All right, two ways to do this. You can either use a knife. Make sure it's sharp, because it can be a little bit of a process. So what you want to do, score each shim down. You can keep going through like that. Or you can use a flush cut saw. I like using this blade. You can use a flat blade too. Alright, so I just finished trimming out the outside of my door with AZEK. I didn't film it because it would have extended the video by about 20 minutes and it was very custom to my house. So normally when you purchase an exterior door, you have brick molding, which is the 2 1/4 molding that actually goes around the outside that actually comes with the door. I did do something a little different because of the setup that I had. So pretty much I'm going to hop right to the insulation. So make sure you get, there's a couple different brands out there. Make sure you get the window and door. So the big gap filler could potentially, expand a little too much and push on the jamb and mess up your reveal that you just worked very hard on. So make sure you get window and door. Now, the reason why I did the exterior trim first, I like to shove the nozzle back there and have it hit the exterior trim so I can fully fill the jambs going around. Just a little easier. So what you want to do, you want to start off with, you can either start from the top or the bottom, it doesn't really matter. I like to do the bottom and then kind of work my way up. But see if you can get that nozzle all the way in the back, do your first perimeter run, and then I want you to double back and just keep filling until you reach pretty much the edge. Don't go too much because it does expand, but I'll show you how all this works. Make sure you shake it well. Alright, take the nozzle off. Usually one can do one door, depends how big your gaps are. So I have some more to do down here, and I still have to like insulate all this once I sheetrock it. So pretty much I'm going to insulate the door now, and then off camera I'm going to sheetrock, do my box, and then I will show you how to finish everything up by doing the inside casing. I want you to be pretty careful around the where the holes for the actual doorknob go. You don't want it to come out and spill in there, so just kind of be conscious over that. Alright, so everything is insulated. I had a couple more spots that you most likely didn't have to do in here, so I'm going to finish insulating everything in here with regular batt insulation. I'm going to finish my electrical, throw my double gang in. I'm going to sheetrock everything, tape it, and then I'm going to show you how to install the casing around the door. Alright, so I finished everything that I needed to do. I got my switches in. Installed sheetrock, taped everything, painted, so now we're good to go. Next step is the trim. Now before we take our measurements, I want to talk about reveal for a second. So the reveal is usually between an 1/8 inch or 3/16, so either one depending on what you have in your house. And what that is the space that you can actually see, the reveal of the actual door jamb after that casing goes in. So I'm going to do 3/16 on mine. That's what I have in the rest of the house. With that being said, whatever you pick, 1/8, 3/16, what I want you to do is take your tape measure and come up here, and I want you to mark 1/8 or 3/16 vertical. Then I want you to do the horizontal right here. And right where those 2 points intersect is called the short point. So picture the casing going up right here, and this is the shortest point of the trim right here. So, and right here, that long point we don't have yet. So that's how we're going to take our measurement. So I want you to do that on both sides. And then what you're going to do, go all the way down to the floor, right where that bottom is going to touch, and get your measurement here. I have 81. And write it here, write it on a little notepad. And you're going to write left side. So, so write your measurement here. And then I want you to measure the other side here. I have 81. So both of mine are 81. Write that down on the wall. If there's any differences, that's perfectly fine. Floors are off. I'm actually very surprised that these are the same numbers because my floors are pretty off. So what you want to do, 81 to the short point here, 81 to the short point here, and again, those are my numbers, so get your own. And then what you're going to do is throw the piece of trim on the chop saw. So you're going to use a miter saw or chop saw, whatever you want to call it, to cut your pieces of trim. I have seen those, I think they're like miter boxes that you can cut it by hand. You can do that if you want. If you know, I don't know if it's worth it for you to buy a miter saw specifically for this one project, or if you want to use it for future ones. So, you know, use your own judgment there. On mine, I actually have to rip this because it's right next to the wall. So that's, you know, one extra little step that I have to do. So I'm going to pretty much get my short points, and then once the short points are good, I have to rip mine, and that's not going to affect the short point here. Because if I took it from the long point, it would you know, there would be a discrepancy with the numbers here. But the fact that both short points are going to be the same no matter what, I can cut my sizes here, rip this guy, install this, and then after these two are installed, then we're going to get our header. All right, so I have my two pieces of casing. I have my left and my right. We're actually going to fasten these with a 18 gauge brad nail gun with 2-inch nails. So what you want to do, you want to focus more on the top. So when we do our first piece right here, you're going to bring the short point right up to that point where those two lines intersect. And you're going to throw one nail here and then one nail here. So make sure you do in pairs of two. One in the actual door jamb and one in the stud. Door jamb, stud, go all the way down. Do that on both sides. And what that's going to do, instead of just nailing it to the wall, as you can imagine, if you go into the stud and the door jamb, it's going to hold that door jamb in place even more so. And then you have your finished nails when we actually install the door jamb itself. So everything kind of works together to kind of keep everything nice and tight. So right now we're going to get this guy and just lay him down. Alright, so here's his first piece. So hop on a ladder. You're going to throw this right down on the floor. And then what we want to do, is get it right there, right where those lines intersect. You want to take your nail gun. Throw one right here, and one right there. Now, I've been doing this for a very long time, so I can eye up the reveal, and it's going to be right there. If you're still, getting used to it, you can actually do those marks all the way down to kind of make sure you have an even reveal. I usually just eye it up, but do, whatever you feel is right for you. And the spacing, you can go around every 16 inches, but somewhere around there. So I think that's a nice pattern, right down here. I usually like to get one right between your deadbolt and your other lock right here, just to, strengthen it a little bit. So I'll probably do that one now. Yeah, because everything looks good here. I'm gonna get this one here. Another thing, make sure when you shoot into the jamb, make sure the nail gun's not kicked this way, because you don't want that nail to kick out and go into the jamb and then pin the door there. So you can always nail set it back in, accidents happen, but make sure you give it a little angle, but sometimes you may just hit a knot and it may just kick off, by itself. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so we're ready for our next piece. This is the one that I actually had to rip. So you're going to get that right in here. Same as before. Line up that top. Make sure your reveal is good. Right there. It's good to me. Alright, so we have both pieces in. Everything looks good. Now, a couple different ways to do the header. I'm forced to do it one way, but if you just have one door on a wall and both pieces of casing are, the same width and they're not ripped, I will show you the easiest way to do it. So, this is not my case, but if you have two pieces of casing that look, that are actually the same width, what you want to do, hook the long point, go all the way over to the other long point, and that's your measurement. That's going to be the easiest to cut on the miter saw. I don't have that luxury with this because it's ripped, so my header piece is actually going to be cut in two different measurements. So first measurement from short point to short point, and that is, I have 32 3/8. So I'm going to write that down. 32 3/8. And then what I'm going to do on the miter saw, I'm going to cut that 32 3/8 from short point to short point, but there's going to be one more cut. Now, it depends on how much you ripped off. If you ripped off an inch or inch and a half, whatever that may be, that's that second cut. So what you want to do, you already know how to cut the 45-degree angle on each side. Next thing you want to do to get this second cut, to know exactly how much to cut off that long point of the header, what you want to do is hook this long point here, go all the way to the wall and see where it ends. So mine is 38 3/4. 38 3/4. So what I'm going to do, cut that first piece, the 32 3/8 from short point to short point, and then what I'm going to do, while this is still on the saw laying down, I'm going to hook the long point and measure over 38 3/4 and just do a straight cut. And what that's going to do is give me this point from here, and then I'm going to do that last, cut that little long point off so he actually fits in this space. Alright, so we have our header piece cut, ready to go. I want to introduce a new gun. It is optional. I really do love using it though. It's the 23 gauge pin nailer. This is great for tacking the long points together. And also just, you know, kind of as you're lining up everything, because these are pretty self-explanatory. You put them up. When you do the header, then you're working with actual miters. So it's a little easier to work with the pin nailer to kind of pin everything together. Once everything's pinned together, everything looks good, then you come back with a brad gun and repeat this process right here. Some people glue the miters. That's an option too. You could do that. You can pair the glue with the pin nailer. So just for this video, I'm just going to use the pin nailer for right now, but I'll show you how this works. So what we want to do, put our piece in place right here, make sure everyone lines up, everything looks really good, and then once you have that to the point where it's lined up here and it's lined up here and everything looks good, then you can take the pin nailer and you want to come right from the top and get right down here. So make sure that's perfect. And again, you don't have to use this. It just makes life a little easier. If you're going to be doing a lot of trim, it's definitely worth getting. If this is your only project, you know, maybe not. Maybe just get the brad gun and, you know, nail this. But I definitely love using it though. Very, very convenient. So we're going to do both sides. Couple right here, and then just to kind of tack it, I'm going to go, even though I'm going to send the brad gun through here, it's just convenient just to kind of get it in place. Perfect. Everything looks good. Everything's flush. Looking good. So now we come back with the brad nail gun, and we repeat the same process right here. So we want to get one right there, one in the header. If you like to do the ends first, get one here, one there, and then we could just do one setup right in the middle. And that is it. Alright guys, well that's the end of the video. I know we went over a lot of different information, so if I happen to miss something or if you ran into something weird with your door installation, please let me know in the comments and I will get right back to you and I'll help you out. And because doors can be a little tricky, each one is a little bit different, so just kind of be aware of that when you're going into that. But I'm always available over email or in the comments section. So other than that, good luck with your project and I hope it goes smooth. Alright, see you next time.